Hello, Eric Walczykowski here, CEO of Bespoke Partners and host of Tailored Talent. Today, I am joined by Stephanie Usry and Debbie Ellisen from Clutch Insights. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric.
Fantastic. Well, Stephanie, I'd like to start with you. Give me a little bit of background on you and how you got into doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. So I'm a longtime startup operator, everything from seed stage to Series D in public companies, and did a little bit of everything. Was in sales operations, moved into product, and eventually HR. Along that path, I actually became an executive coach and started coaching people a few steps behind me, and was doing coaching and training and leadership development on the side. This is in the day when HR and startups was an anathema. So doing the leadership coaching, I was really filling a lot of the gaps because we just didn't have HR teams. And had a lot of fun building manager training programs and leadership development programs alongside my day job until I finally decided, hey, this is the thing that I really want to be spending my time on, and have since been full-time consulting.
No, fantastic. Well, I imagine working in startups to public companies, mostly in the tech industry, the velocity and pace is so important. And I noticed that you were the first radical candor coach. And I'm a huge fan of radical candor from the aspect of when you're trying to move fast, the better the relationship and the more direct we can be with each other, the better we're able to move. So tell me a little bit about your experience with radical candor.
The amazing thing about San Francisco is the people that you just bump into. And so I was attending a talk on this random concept at the time called radical candor. This is the early 2010s, and saw Kim give the very first public talk about the framework. And I was so moved by it. And I really wanted to give her feedback about how she could have made the talk even better because the framework was so good. And
that's Stephanie.
Yeah, classic. And anyway, there was a long line and I was like, oh, I won't do that. But I ended up bumping into her while I was waiting for my Uber outside. So I turned to her and asked if I could give her some feedback. And she said, in a very Kim style, well, duh, and shared feedback on the talk. And she really appreciated it. And I summed up a little more courage. And I said, if there's any way to work with you, I'd love to. She says, call me tomorrow. And we had a call. And from that moment forward, I talked to her partner at the time, Russ, and became one of the first coaches, which was fantastic. So really had an amazing about 10 years that I spent with the team delivering the Radical Candor framework to companies large and small, quite literally around the world. And it was,
and how is the concept shaping what you're doing today?
Yeah, the thing that I love about Radical Candor is it instills people in wanting to care while also give that direct challenge. But what I always felt like was missing was you're giving feedback, but a lot of times that's the first time the person has ever heard that you had this expectation. And so I was like, there's kind of a pre-step. Before you get feedback, you need to clarify, what do I expect of you? What is that I want to get? What am I expecting? So then this is how you're not delivering on that expectation. And so as Debbie and I started working together, Radical Candor was this massive inspiration because we said there's a step before, which is making explicit expectations, which is really what was the beginning of us building out Clutch and the tools that we have.
Very cool. Debbie, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into this.
Yeah, well, I started off as an operator in tech, came up through the sales ranks and was chief revenue officer for several high growth companies. And somewhere along the way, I got introduced to Pat Lencioni and the Table Group and thought it would be cool to help people navigate some of these waters of high growth executive roles. So I worked there for about 7 years and, similar to staff, it was amazing. It was great to work for someone who already had content and that was well known and had several books. And then, along the way, sort of got tapped to be a CEO of a digital coaching platform. And so got a chance to apply some of my learnings and coached myself through some of the harder times there. And then Steph and I met and we're actually at the Shack. We work at the Shack 15. And if you haven't been there, it's the workspace at the Ferry Building in San Francisco. And it's very inspiring. And so we kind of took a little break in December to share sort of our 3 to 5 year individual plans with each other over a lunch. Yeah. And the next thing you know, we were really aligned around the desires we had to help people, again, sort of like set better expectations, accelerate their ability to, as you said, you're a fan of Radical Candor because it really can help people navigate, strategies a lot more quickly. So when you have to move fast, to sort of wait around until you build enough trust to have conversations is really not allowed.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
How would you say that your upbringing in sales has impacted what you're doing today?
Yeah, I think it's been really helpful to, one, obviously having been in a seat with clients. So a lot of our work has to do with creating tools, but also coaching and providing services around that to help leaders utilize these. So having been there and having empathy is number one. But the specific sales background, I think, is helpful in when you're selling products. As you know, listening is really important, and appreciating sort of what very specific problem the person is trying to solve. So I was enterprise sales leader for so long that I just think that became natural because I did it for so long. And so that's what we have to do. We have to really listen to our clients. When we built the Clutch product, we had, many wonderful informal board members that we asked a lot of questions of, and we really dug in. And so I think that has been very helpful for me to have as a skill to listen, really make sure we understand what people are really trying to accomplish, and then provide services and products around that.
Very cool. So you talked a little bit about this, but you're both working at the Shack. You get together, you share your 3 to 5 year visions, they align. Talk to me a little bit about the spark that said, hey, let's join forces and do something different.
Yeah, well, it was kind of amazing because at the time I had been trying to build a better 360 tool. I was really frustrated as a coach. There are all these tools. There's a bunch of gatekeepers. Maybe you have employee surveys that they run to the whole company, but they're not really focused on executive leaders. And there was just nothing out there that was accessible, that was easy to use, and actually solve the problems that I was looking for. And so I had started doing research and trying to build a 360 tool. And when ChatGPT came out, it was like that was a massive unlock. But I was building the tool, and when Debbie and I were talking, she had this incredible idea for a framework, right, to support what we were actually measuring leaders on. And so she was talking about a framework, I was talking about this tool, and we were like, those would be a perfect pairing. Why do we not do this together? And so I was literally about to leave for Australia or for New Zealand. And we were like, okay, maybe we'll go build this. And the same thing for leader can be applied to a team assessment, right? We don't just want to do a leader 360. We want to have a better team 360. How effective is this team at working together? And then the cool thing is we were also like, well, that applies to boards as well. So we can kind of duplicate this similar product across the 3 different audiences that we serve in our consulting services. So I went away to New Zealand, and we came back, and we had both sold this product to our clients. And we were like, I guess we should build this together.
Yeah, I guess most startup founders have stories like this where I can just remember eating the tacos
at
the restaurant. Yeah. And we both just after an hour and a half were like, oh my gosh, this is this perfect fit. And we had both been testing it, these concepts with clients for years. And so it was really just a matter of formalizing it and creating the company and then getting that informal board of ours and testing. And so, yeah, we launched in October of last year. So it's great.
Very cool. So framework, 360 tool coming together. Talk to me about really what the framework is and how you do things differently.
Right. Yeah. I think we do some things differently. And I think we're also tapping into already proven concepts.
Okay.
So I think some of the already proven concepts are the framework is strategy, culture, and execution. And no one disagrees that those are the 3 things that we should be measuring. I think that some tools out there and some coaches out there might focus on one of the 3, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But really, executives and leaders in organizations need to be doing all 3 of those. Yep. And we just fine-tune some language, modern language around the skills required to do each of those things really well. And so there are 5 skills in each of those 3 capabilities: culture, strategy, and execution. And I had been testing that for several years before we rolled it into the product. Mm-hmm. And again, our wonderful informal board helped us continue to craft the words so that they meant things to executives and they meant things to people. So I think it's proven models and just modernizing it. And then with the technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, we didn't want to just do another multiple choice. Everyone gets a 3 or a 4. No, everyone feels bad, ready to go 2. So it just doesn't work if you really want meaningful feedback. And so again, as AI came out, when ChatGPT came out, we were playing around with this idea of how can we just collect qualitative data, long form responses. And we literally have people just talk into their phone, their responses to this 360 survey. We capture all of that qualitative data. And then we use AI to score people's responses against the framework, which is, I think, a really novel way to do it. And there's all sorts of technical things that come into that to really make sure it's unbiased and it's fair and it's level. But it makes the product really interesting because it's just natural words and it's what people have said, consolidated and aggregated. So it's anonymized. It's safe to say what you think. And we get some real feedback from people. They really tell us the truth, which ends up helping give much better insights to the end user. Again, be it the team, they end up having conversations they've never had before because people realize, oh, I'm not the only one saying this. Or a leader saying, wow, I'm getting a lot of feedback about the way I'm operating my team, right? Our execution score is really low. What do we need to do to have better execution rhythms? And they can actually engage in a conversation and get that radically candid feedback that they've been wanting.
Absolutely. And so up to speed, back in our PE landscape, high performance, what are the secrets to high performing teams?
Yeah, I think the best team I ever worked with was a biotech firm here in the Bay Area. And they had this, we used to say like, wow, you guys have the Holy Grail. And it was that they were able to give each other peer-to-peer feedback. It was just as simple as that. But that is really hard to get, right? And we can probably all three sit around and think about, well, how many teams have I really been on that were allowed to do that? So, I mean, I worked myself out of a job because I had coached them for maybe a year. And in one of my last meetings with them, they didn't need facilitation of, well, if I had gotten that from you earlier, then I could have, and my team, and no one was offended. It was all in the spirit of this goal they had. So, I mean, that's my opinion about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the basic framework, right? Do we have a strong culture? Can we say the hard things? Do we engage in feedback? Do we say what we think? Do we actually have the space and the right emotional connection that we can engage in an important way? Strategy, are we clear? Do we have debate? Do we reach agreement? If we don't agree, do we commit anyway, or lean into the conversation until we can get past disagreement to actual agreement, so that Eng is not building something that product doesn't actually want because they actually don't think product is right, which happens more than we'd like to admit. So do they actually engage in the hard conversations and align on a strategy? And then are they doing what they say? Do they have the rhythms, the rituals in place to actually get things done?
And all of that still comes back to them being able to talk about how they're doing.
Yep.
Like talking in real English about what's going well and what's not.
Yeah.
There goes radical candor again, right?
Yeah. That's that concept. Yeah.
So when we think about this in high performance, how is data-driven insights reshaping performance and value creation?
Yeah, the fascinating thing that's going on is AI is making it so much easier to analyze vast amounts of data. So all those employee surveys of the past, it used to be just a kind of one and done. And now we're actually getting to have a lot more longitudinal view and a thematic, right? What are the themes over time? What's bubbling up? What's changing? And it's much easier to access. But the thing is the conversations still need to happen. So even though the tools are getting easier, they're making things simpler for you. With all these data insights, you've actually got to be able to go from, okay, this is what the data says, to what does that mean for us and what are we going to do about it? I can't tell you how many as an HR leader I sat in on with my executive team that would review the employee voice survey or the talent assessment, and they'd just be like, okay, yeah, sounds good. Like, we already know those problems. We're not really going to solve that. So it's about like, how do we actually move from just knowing the data to actually having the capacity to deal with and take action and model behavior change in response to it?
No, it makes a ton of sense. And I think this notion of data and information, you've got to come back to being able to deploy the information in a way that people can make decisions on. And that's where I think AI is just so powerful for us in analyzing, being able to ask questions and pull that out. Well, Debbie, Stephanie, thank you so much for carving out some time today. This was a fun conversation on some very important things. And I look forward to working with you guys to shape the future of PE and talent.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Eric. Really appreciate it.
Have an amazing day.
All right.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.